there is a video that was posted by our dear friend Cammy Cakes. Title of this video, Skull's Gamer's Dad. Hold on. Where's the thumbnail? Thumbnail, a sinking ship with the Destiny 2 fucking cover. Oh my god, dude. I have a feeling some great wisdom is going to be shared here.
So the first thing you gotta do is put on Journey featuring Chrono's quartet. Then you have to sigh. You have to be like, Then you have to use cliched breakup lines. Like, what we used to have was special, but lately I've been thinking about other games. You used to always be there for me at my lowest points, and I feel awful doing this over text, but it's the best way for me to get my thoughts out as clearly and concise and make sure I don't make any... Wait a second. Why does every video on my YouTube feed sound like this right now? Hey, friends. Hey, get your hand off that playback speed button. We're gonna get rolling at breakneck speed. So, I did the generic breakup intro. That's what every video on my feed sounds like lately. And as grim as the state of the game is perceived to be right now, I don't think it's the fabled make or break moment because there isn't enough competition. There still isn't. I mean, we have Borderlands and Warframe, sure, but those aren't Destiny enough. The real make or break moment is if Marathon and Renegades fail simultaneously. Let's keep it rolling. We got a lot to cover. So, as just a generic disc...
That's a great point. No, really, it's a great point. We're not at make or break now. But yes, if Renegades was to launch and it flopped harder than Edge of Fate, and a Marathon... I'm gonna be honest, if Marathon rolls out and it's dead on arrival, even if Renegades does well, like even if Renegades numbers are better than Edge of Fate, I truly believe Marathon could literally take the whole studio down. If Marathon rolls out dead on arrival, I really think that could be it from Bungie. And I mentioned that this is kind of poetic in a way, that one of your original IPs, one of your first games ever made, could be your last. Isn't that... Who fucking scripts this shit?
Disclaimer that's probably going to span most of the video. Destiny muddies its identity in an attempt to cater to different groups at different times of the year at the inevitable expense of other groups. Unintentional or not, this leads to overall larger buy-in for the player population despite wavering player satisfaction that brings in and pushes away different and new generations of Destiny groups on almost a yearly cycle. Every season, a new generation of Destiny players learn what Destiny specifically means to them. From there on, that's one more generation that Bungie has to juggle demands from.
That's such an interesting take. Hold on. Is this the equivalent of adding skill-based matchmaking, but then taking it away before the launch of an annual expansion to then add it again after the launch of the annual expansion? So like you're trying, like, we're going to appeal to the veteran player. That's a very simplified way of looking at it. It's like appeal to the veteran players or the hardcore PvP for just a second.
Because of Destiny's perpetual identity crisis, no matter what I say, I'll anger a substantial portion of the player base. There are easily 10 plus player archetypes at odds with one another in the game. In general, I advocate against my own in-game preferences in favor of community sentiment that I believe has the greatest chance to bolster the population numbers. In terms of opinions, I've learned to answer for feedback in all four of the following ways combined, kind of like a politician. This is what I think the best move is for population numbers. That's number one. Number two, here is feedback from an expert point of view. Novices might become experts in the future, so do with this as you will, but always defer to boosting the population. Number three, this is my personal opinion on the matter. I'm only really mentioning this so you can...
Oh man, I just have to stop. Like, Cammy is breaking this down so great. I just have to stop though, that like we're at this point in the Destiny community where like, listen, these numbers got to go up, baby. We're gonna give our what we believe in, our opinions, but these numbers got to go the fuck up.
Build a profile on what kind of player I am. Number four, emphasis on potential critical failure points that seem to stem from conflicting ideas being forced onto the game in the exact same space. Sometimes it feels like the devs need to gather enough ammunition to break through the toxic positivity cycle that has already doomed many games. Not going to go into that. Also, content creators are not solely to blame. Regular players are drafted for both feedback summits and playtest. If Bungie really listened to content... Alright, let editing Cammy just interject right here. I'm not part of the creator program. I opted out. This is from the heart. This is real. Insert generic salty comment villainizing content creator. If Bungie really listened to content creators, In PvE, we'd have Borderlands-style shiny loot chases, robust gambling crafting systems to guarantee a desired playstyle for the cost of a lot of full game investment, and truly intrinsic replayable content with a suite of difficulty options allowing for both power fantasy and contest experiences alike. We'd have clan housing and sparrow racing by now. In PvP, we'd have a separate game at this point, Destiny, the Golden Age Arena, fit with an advanced Forge mode, a Fiesta party playlist where chaos ensues, and a competitive mode where the game is fine-tuned to feel dynamic despite climbing the skill ladder. Success here ties back to the PvE version of the game with cosmetics and so forth. I promise you content creators don't have a secret evil meeting.
No, we don't. And let me just also add to this point. Cammy is making so much sense right now. When you give feedback to any game development company, whether it's, Bungie or whoever, this is how it goes. They essentially let you play certain features and then they go, how do you feel about this? And you may have like great ideas of how to enhance that particular feature, but you're going to be stopped. Like you could say it, but then you will be met with, that's just not possible right now. And that happens so much. The whole, that's a bit too ambitious. That's not within reason. Or my favorite, there's no real return on that investment. And that's really, like, there's only so much. What really developers try to do when they bring you in and let you play with certain features, and this goes for any playtest, is they're just trying to fine tweak what they've already set in motion. And sometimes what's been set in motion is shit. And so how do you, other than just looking at the guy and being like, it's kind of shit, dude. You know where I'm coming from? And they're like, well, we've already committed. You know where I'm coming from? And then you're like, all right, how do I turn shit rock into something else? Like, how can we possibly make this rock of shit, this fucking clump of shit into something more? And you sit there and, but sometimes you just look at it and you're just like, God, it's just ass. You know what I mean? There's nothing I can use, nothing y'all can do. And then it's just sadness. It's just only so much. Yeah, let's just continue listening.
Set on adding more microtransactions, time gates, and convolution to game systems. They aren't here giving pointers on how to make the new player experience worse. Let's put the lens back on Bungie and the community. We're listening. That's kind of obfuscating the truth, if I said that word correctly. They're, in fact, listening, but what the hell are they supposed to do with conflicting feedback? A while ago, I did a viewer and Twitter poll on various divisive Destiny topics. The results were hilarious, with close to 50% for most of the answers. In all seriousness, I firmly believe that feedback doesn't matter at all when it's up to Bungie to finally pick a direction and just go. But time and time again, like recently, they pump the brakes and hit reverse back to the starting point, or worse. All that does is reinforce that loud, visceral complaining gets results, and they're guaranteed to infuriate 50% of the player base at any turn. In my opinion, I wish Bungie would pick a direction and go, disregarding feedback externally and tripling down on shattering a culture of toxic positivity internally. At the end of the day, they'll make the game they want to make. While I'm on the topic, I think we should go back to the old motto: we make games we want to play. And if I and others don't like the game, that's fine, we'll play something else. But for the players who like the game, they'll for once love the game with fewer compromises. We're listening doesn't also mean we're correctly interpreting. While the player could be to blame for not saying what they really mean, the developers are equally or more to blame for creating an illusion the player often doesn't realize they're living in. A good common example of this is when Destiny players say they want a grind, when what they really want is they want to gamble. The same players complaining about an arbitrary grind for tier 5 loot are the same players that farm the most boring encounters imaginable for a 1 out of 500 chance at a competitive weapon roll.
Oh my God, dude. I don't know why I didn't see this. You fuckers love to gamble. We do eggplant bets in here all the time for like various things, damage testing, whatever else. But dude, I think he's right. I think we as a Destiny community like to gamble. Now, don't go gamble real money. That shit's scary. But like in-game stuff, we like to gamble. We like to flaunt what we won in our gambles. There's no way you just realized that. Well, in the midst of everyone saying, I want grind, or you have so many people like, I want grind. I want to mitigate the grind. I want RNG. I want weapon crafting and red borders to mitigate RNG. You see where I'm coming from? There's a range here between the two. But deep down, admit it to yourselves. When you have that godly God roll, but someone else has that same exact God roll, it doesn't hit as hard. But when you have that god roll, that hidden hand rifle barrel, IS Luna with rangefinder, with true sight or sure shot, you know that just about everybody in the lobby with you doesn't have that same IS Luna. This is back in Destiny 1. Doesn't have that same IS Luna. I personally don't feel that way about loot anymore. Right. Let Cammy continue to talk here.
Might not even utilize enough in the endgame to justify the time spent to upgrade. I'm not defending the new system, but it actually gives better odds to leave a season with more god rolls than the previous season.
Yeah.
This is especially true if you realize that tier 1 gear is functionally competitive with the right roll, and it can drop on the way to 451 power. All this to say that although this player demographic has proven that they willingly put themselves through a bad experience to gamble if the loot is immediately enticing enough, keyword immediate, the player will only care about the absolute best and nothing in between when it comes to gambling. They might not admit it, but I suspect they'd rather spend 500 hours shooting into a loot cave where at any point they could get the best god rolls than to spend 100 hours slap leveling in the portal to then spend 5 hours shooting in a loot cave to get that same god roll, but faster.
Do you see the distinction there? Right now, the way the system works is you level up, you reach certain level thresholds, you then go into the loot cave, and then literally within 3, 4, maybe 5 hours, you have every god roll you need, at least from, Kepler. And various locations are the same way. Pretty much once you reach the certain, like 450 plus, you're going to get every god roll you could ever imagine. You're going to have all the tier 5s you can imagine, which is why Bungie made the grind to 450 so damn hard, because they wanted that to be the gate. You're going to have the promised land of god rolls, but it's going to require X amount of hours to get to that point. Versus the dopamine effect of what if you're in the midst of grinding or hitting a loot cave and you have the potential for a god roll to drop on you at any moment. That's why I said that it would have been nice if there was a way for a tier 5 to have a chance of dropping for you, even if you're under level. It's almost like playing Path of Exile or Diablo, and you have some of the best items potentially drop for you. I'm gonna be honest, guys, like I like tier 5 loot, but I'm not completely sold on the systems. We're in such a weird state right now. I'm gonna be honest, guys, we're in such a weird state in regards to loot in this game. And I bring this up because we did the new player experience, and literally within the first 30 minutes of being a new player, a brand new player, I was given a legendary item, which is crazy to me. The whole process of working your way up from common to uncommon to rares to legendaries, that has been completely eradicated. The way the system is now is to essentially just give you all the shit and get you on board to start earning tiered loot. And then you just look at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, 4, 5, right?
The key takeaway is that when this player demographic says, we want more of a grind, what they effectively mean is we want Bungie to make loot more enticing and random like Borderlands, which puts Bungie in an interesting predicament where they have to weigh different forms of sunsetting to not risk too much power creep trivializing content, because otherwise the player wouldn't want the loot to begin with. The power creep is so bad right now that functionally you don't even need guns. You can run some of the hardest content in the game, abilities only. But some of these players also want a conflicting wish of keeping their previously owned weapons functionally competitive, which can lead to the impending power creep. PvP players are especially vocal here since certain gun rolls quite literally define and enable a fun playstyle. If sunsetting robbed them of that role without an immediate replacement, I could see them quitting the game. For what it's worth, I do think Bungie had some great ideas for side grades and alternative weapon ideas. However, some overtuned loot slipped through the cracks and made power creep untenable for as long as it should have held the illusion glue together. Back on topic, do you see how any forms of feedback all essentially ask Bungie to come to the same few conclusions? Either create a better illusion or separate the sandboxes and games. The real downward spiral of the game is that the illusion inevitably gets weaker the longer the game exists from being...
God damn it, that's good. God damn it. This Cammy guy's good. No. He's good. You already just said, create a better illusion. But the illusion erodes due to the length of the game. Or in other words, like, people call it like loot treadmill and whatnot.
Perpetually solved. So the devs have to get more and more creative, which doesn't seem...
let me just back up real quick.
Separate the sandboxes and games.
And he's saying we all eventually come to the same conclusions. Whether you believe it or not,
asked Bungie to come to the same few conclusions: either create a better illusion or separate the sandboxes and games. The real downward spiral of the game is that the illusion inevitably gets weaker the longer the game exists from being perpetually solved. So the devs have to get more and more creative, which doesn't seem realistic to keep on going this long. The most obvious illusion was to put a 3 on the box and force a hard sunset. Perhaps do it one better and fully commit to the Diablostiny or World of Destiny craft that they keep flip-flopping on over the years. Like, just make the game that way if you want the game to be that way. Stop these half measures. The Portal, in my opinion, was a failed illusion. My own Portal feedback can pretty much be summarized by Esoteric's video. Advocating for the community, I think the Portal is a failure to hobbyists, but a small success to the newer and more casual Destiny fans. If it does stay, it needs to streamline that 15 minutes to play on my lunch break vibe while removing its necessity to progress in the game. I personally don't think the Portal was all bad, since it, for the first time ever, gives us contest deltas for the other 350 days of the year when we don't have a contest raid or dungeon. Obviously, like the ESO video goes into detail, I wish I could separate trash modifiers from the power deltas, and Bungie has mentioned that they're planning on that. You're going to see that my theme for feedback in this video is advocating for a new illusion for Destiny. Just putting a 3 on the box would be the illusion some players need to start appreciating more of the good and less hyper-fixation on the bad. It would also give old players who quit a reason to be curious again. And there are things to be curious about. We got the best raid and a host of some of the most interesting sandbox changes in a long time, which to some is the game itself. And for whatever reason, players are tunnel vision on an effectively meaningless Portal grind when they could have been intrinsically enjoying the game on their way up to tier 5 loot, which is also effectively meaningless for all but contest raiders, speedrunners, trial sherpas, and comp grinders. The saddest part of the illusion breaking, leading to worse community sentiment, is that Bungie's attempt to bet the house on the Portal illusion seems to have come at the expense of, in my opinion, the real replayable part of Destiny 2 that other shooters just can't seem to beat at Destiny's own niche. Yes, I'm talking about PvP. But PvP isn't free from illusions either. We have experiential FOMO every other week with new time gate gear, seasonal artifacts, sandbox updates, and suspiciously timed bugs. Most PvP players need these interferences to force them to change their playstyle out of their own will and volition.
And before you guys dunk on PvP and be like, this game is not a PvP game, keep in mind, the most played activity in all of Destiny by a large margin is Control. And we saw the data on that here recently. Now, it's not to say that there's more PvP players than PvE. It's just that I mean, think about it. Where I'm even at right now. It's like, I've got my God Rose everywhere else. What do? I guess I'll go fuck around in PvP. You know what I'm saying? PvP has always been that thing that when there was downtime in between content, that's what we played. But even that's not sustained. That's the problem. Even people, and how could it? How could it when there's been literally nothing done on the PvP side of things? The PvP team is gone. They're working on Marathon.
An illusion, you could say. While I personally dislike PvP being flavor of the annoying week, it does get results in keeping boring players varied for their own sake. Unfortunately, I see through the illusion. 10 weeks of different annoyances to me is still 10 weeks of annoyances. The reason I still stick around is that I basically hit Grandmaster status, so I can afford myself the luxury to competitively deviate from whatever the flavor of the week is and run whatever appropriate aesthetic choice gets the job done. Whatever hoops I have to jump through this week to get a gunfight is just a trade-off for a bigger player population. This illusion helps bolster that population. Boredom is why I suspect the middle bracket of PvPers leave. This is basically how I've always approached the game. Personal opinion now. If there was ever a game that had Destiny DNA without the live service illusion slop, I'd immediately hop ship and grind that PvP game instead. Unfortunately, Marathon's genre creates a different illusion that I'm also not a fan of, so I'll have to wait if a Destiny PvP standalone game exists, if ever. Otherwise, I'll do the next best thing and continue to play Destiny PvP till the wheels fall off. The population has fallen enough that I notice a lot of unplayable PvP lobbies, but high key, the map pool and power ammo systems contribute to more port games more than connection. So it's not that I don't still want to play, it's that I cannot sometimes. I have to wait until peak hours to find the right conditions to have a net enjoyable play session. To be clear, I don't consider a good play session dropping 50 bombs on repeat. I like when the game state is dynamic and I have opportunities to do cool things even if I don't land them or win the match. Modern matchmaking and game balance makes these opportunities way more scarce than they should be. I said the phrase net enjoyable, which kind of reminds me of Bungie's balancing slogan, net fun. Essentially, the player needs to have more positive feelings by enjoying using something more than the negative feelings associated with dying to that same thing. I'm too deep in the weeds to appropriately give feedback on this one, but I'm curious about what the middle PvP bracket thinks, since they're so overwhelmed by Destiny's sandbox, almost every death is too much of a mystery to even worry about. Me, on the other hand, I see an Atheros Embrace loadout and basically am forced to swap to a Glaive, and I have to block, as the only realistic way to prevent a random death.
Yeah, and this goes back to Cammy's point before, that PvP has too many blue shells. Like the blue shells inside of Mario Kart. You can't stop it. I don't think you can. But we have too many things inside of Destiny's PvP that just has like little to no counterplay whatsoever. So that's the blue shell comparison on that.
Another example is Cryosthesia and Diamond Lances. I'm practically their biggest op. With the way that teams are lobby balanced, I have no earthly clue what to do to avoid being frozen from my team's misplays. I struggle to fathom how this fits into the net fun balancing scheme, but like I said, I'm really too far gone in PvP to feel that this feedback is meaningful, just a little side tangent for my commuters to enjoy. The next topic is the new player experience. While some would say the new player onboarding system is one of the worst gaming has to offer, I don't think it's the number one priority to get right now. First of all, Bungie will likely be overhauling mini-game-led systems, so they'd have to redesign onboarding to reflect the new changes. I do believe the Star Wars collab episode, you know what, we're gonna call them seasons. I do believe the Star Wars collab season will be a draw to new players, so I'd imagine the devs are crunching like crazy to hit the obvious deadline for both a system.
On the topic of the new player experience, it is awful. But at the same time, I don't know, man. I just hate that new players essentially have 30 minutes to an hour in the Cosmodrome, and they're met with paywall after paywall, and they're essentially thrown right into the portal. I had the Warframe experience last year, and I thought that their experience was really, really good, because even though it took me a long time, and I mean, took me a long time to even get to a point where I guess where current Warframe players were, I had just so much content to satisfy me from the beginning until 1999. It's not even just like not having content as a new player. It's like not having context, not having content, and immediately throwing them into stuff that they didn't get to experience like we did. The reveal of the witness immediately really fucking sucks, dude. Like, why would you do that? Let people, like, why can't people just have that discovery? You know how confusing Edge of Fate is to a new player? It's so fucking confusing. And so, like, the onboarding experience for me is not like, hey, how can we get them into Edge of Fate? The onboarding experience is like, no, how can we just give new players a start to finish experience for all of the previous campaigns, all of the story, which should give a ton of content, while also aiding them. They can be leveling up throughout the entire process.
Will be a draw to new players, so I'd imagine the devs are crunching like crazy to hit the obvious deadline for both a system overhaul and new player onboarding to go alongside it so that they can enjoy the Star Wars season. We can all sense the desperation from Bungie with the recent flip-flopping on progression systems. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the classic break glass in case of typical suspects like Black Shaders, Nostalgia Bait, Sparrow Pod Racing, Pantheon 2 for FOMO rewards, Ludopaloozas, and intentionally crafting bugs. In the past, Bungie has described their job as upgrading an airplane while the airplane is already in the air. With their budget and manpower spread to other projects, I'm suspicious that they might not have the funds, creative or monetary-wise, to dig out of the design debt they've found themselves in, unless the other projects yield commercial success. I'm not counting out Marathon at all, considering the amount of feedback given to it with its edge on the console market. It can also achieve wider success by nailing its X factor to distinguish itself from others in the same genre. But on the other hand, Marathon is seen as damaged goods by the greater gamesphere due to an art scandal and Bungie's poor response to it. So speculating here, if Marathon also fails, then what exactly does life support look like for Destiny? Is it gonna maintain like Destiny 1? Is it gonna fizzle out? Are we gonna have to pay for server space directly to access it? Is Bungie gonna send it off with a bang and squeeze as much exit profit as possible while setting up the Destiny 3 gambit behind closed doors? I couldn't guess. I just hope they have enough supplies and reserves to give it one more chance of attempting to solidify the identity of the game and full sending it. Illusions and cheap tricks might not be enough this time. I do believe that if they stick to their old motto of making games that they want to play, then they'll probably earn a consistent player base back. Once that's rolling again, they need to desperately fix that onboarding system. Even if I shared my screen and walked a new player through the game, It's just taxing. I have to explain something like the Rose hand cannon is unobtainable except from Zur, who shows up on the weekends. And if he doesn't have it in its inventory, it's just unobtainable. It's easier to just say it's unobtainable. But no, don't leave. I promise the game is fun. You don't have to jump through that many. Okay, you do have to jump through a lot of hoops, but it is fun. And to the Sherpa, good luck not finding the straw that breaks the new player's back, despite so much content in the game feeling magical for that first playthrough. They have to comfortably make it to that point in the game first. Good luck getting them there. Alright, I think I talked enough. Let's finally answer, hey Cam, do you still find the game fun? I still find the game fun. Loot is easier to get than ever, new armor system has me trying wild fun combos, and I still have many long-term skill goals that I haven't hit yet. I'm pretty much just going to keep playing till the wheels fall off. Let's hope Bungie does good work with their backs against the wall. Thank you for listening, and be kind in the comment section.
No, that was a great video. Thank you. Thank you, Cammy. I think some of the most interesting points about, or that was mentioned in this video, is that there is so many voices. And I think what it really needs to boil down to is we give feedback, but Bungie really has to go back to their original motto of we make games that we like to, that we want to play. They got to get back to that. If you're the developer and you yourself don't find that you're excited to play Destiny, how the fuck are we? You know what I'm saying? I will say this, and let me actually pull the reason why we're, this is not, I like hate giving feedback like this, where it's like Bungie's gonna have to listen to their gut on this shit. That's essentially what we're saying. Bungie, gonna have to make your own decisions and listen to your gut on some of this shit. This was a great tweet by Llama. With unstable cores going away in Renegades, this is yet another system change that was introduced in the Edge of Fate, but then walked back. The list certainly growing. Here's a visual guide of most of the reversions and changes that have happened or are coming in Renegades. This is probably not a full list. Let me know if I missed anything. This right here, man, is what hurts more than anything. You are working backwards, man. You're implementing systems and then reversing those systems. That you are double working yourself. The Edge of Fate walk back. Additions, changes implemented in the Edge of Fate that have been or are planned to be reverted. Power delta changes, overhauls. Max leveling no longer requires only primes. Sandbox changes reverted. Raids dungeons -10 delta changes. Improved desert perpetual tier loot. Conquest can now be played multiple times. Score rewards now based. And by the way, like some of these changes are good changes, right? We're just simply pointing out the overall vision having to change so much in a mere 3 months after launch. You know what I mean? Anyways, look, man, I know it's incredibly difficult to just get everything right and to just nail down. But I will say, I think a great place you can start is look at the times in the past where things worked and didn't work. And then as far as like, what is like the baseline of like the model that Bungie should follow? I really just, I keep saying it over and over, but I guess, and it's never probably going to happen. But I think Forsaken is just still it, guys. From the loot drops to the rollout of pinnacles to the rollout of content, I think Forsaken, man, that's where we need to be. And look, if you want to break Forsaken, like, I don't know, I guess the question would be like, well, they can't do something as big as Forsaken. All right, well, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's like they just don't have the overhead. I mean, keep in mind, back then they had multiple studios, even outside of Bungie, that was working on Forsaken shit. So again, I know that everything I'm saying is just pretty much impossible at this time. What was it about Forsaken? Okay, so be specific though. What exactly about it? I think Forsaken really marked a time where there was still a lot of mystery within Destiny, and we were surprised. And it was also when exotics were not being thrown at us for sale. Think about how most of the exotics are. It's just like a, hey, here's your checklist of exotics, and everything is just as a featured thing. Exotics are featured as pre-order items. Exotics are featured as season pass items. You see where I'm coming from? Back then we had pinnacle weapons too. So, and that really incentivized people to grind in those particular playlists. Dude, there were so many people playing comp then because of how good Luna's Howl was. And then you can go even beyond that, max out, and get not forgotten. Borderlands 3 had the issue of legendaries everywhere and killed the rarity. Now Borderlands 4 has gone back to making legendaries feel special. Destiny doesn't do that anymore. Look. Oh man, dude, I don't know. Renegades, man. I do believe it Cammy on this. If Renegades and Marathon both flop, and depending on how bad of a flop from just Marathon alone, it's not good. Tier 5s in the new legendary. We just play with blues until you get them. Yeah, but even that's, dude, once you reach 450 power, which everyone can do now, everyone's got tier 5s. And if everyone's got tier 5s, Then what the fuck is the point of tier 5s? And I know some of you are gonna be like, Cross, are you trying to gate gear? No, I like the way Forsaken did things. I like in Forsaken that if you couldn't get 2,500 in comp, you couldn't get Luna's Howl. If you couldn't get 5,500, you couldn't get Not Forgotten. No matter how many times you got on Twitter or Reddit and you said, this is some bullshit. I bought this expansion. I should be getting Not Forgotten. If you couldn't get to 5,500, so be it. If you couldn't, look, man, it's been applied everywhere. If you couldn't clear GMs, you couldn't get Adepts. Can't clear the raid, you can't get the gear there. You know what I mean? Couldn't get to certain points, you know what I mean? Trials is another example of that. Casual gamers ruined Destiny 2. I don't think that ruined Destiny 2 either, guys. I think it's just lack of content, guys. It's just lack of content. The portal and everything else that existed was the hope of bridging the content drop-off. That was the hope. And let's just be clear. I don't think things are going to improve until after Marathon comes out. I think that is taking all the attention right now. And look, man, Bungie's looking at Arc Raiders right now, and they know they got to ball out with this shit. Oh my God, dude, there's so many beginnings of the end. Hold on. Some people say DCV was the beginning of the end. I'm going to take this a step further. The beginning of the end for me was when Bungie capitulated and they changed the difficulty to the fucking, oh my God, Forges. They changed the difficulty to Forges. Within the first 24 hours, they changed the difficulty to Forges. That right there. I saw so many tweets, so many things on Reddit, and people were saying, I mean, literally, quote for quote, I paid for this, Bungie. Why can't I beat this? Blows my mind. I paid for this, Bungie. I should be able to beat this and get my loot. Within 24 to 48 hours, Bungie came out and they nerfed it. But without a doubt, the most damaging thing Bungie has ever done is the DCV. The Destiny Content Vault, sunsetting, most damaging thing. That is why the onboard experience for new players is so shit. It is by far the most damaging thing. There should have been another solution outside of that. And it also just didn't go the way that many of us were led to believe. I was under the impression things were being taken out of Destiny to be brought back into Destiny. We were told things were going to be rebuilt, recoded, right? It was going to be more efficient, easier to work with. It was going to even look better. Things that would be removed would return better. And it did not happen that way. Like, as much good stuff Luke Smith is known for inside of Destiny, sunsetting in the DCV will hang with him forever. Not that it matters. He got a fucking bag, and my man's probably hanging out in Miami right now, having a great time. But that shit will always be attached to his name. Do you think they actually intended to properly bring stuff out of the DCV, or was that their plan all along? Well, I don't know what their plan was. All I know is what happened, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Our conversation and, everything leading up to DCV was that Destiny was going to become a forever game, and that the removal of content here was to get it to a point where Destiny could be that forever game. But it just didn't happen that way. And here's the issue. The developers at Bungie right now, I do think that they are working their ass off, but you're down to less than half of what your original studio size was, with expectations to deliver content that I expect, which is on Forsaken's level, which, by the way, was only possible because Bungie had two other studios outside of their own studio building that shit. I would love to get High Noon and Vicarious Visions back, but you're not going to get them back. And then they have this shitty fucking infrastructure, whether that's a fault of the Tiger engine or whatever, with a terrible... essentially what's happened is the developers right now have the shittiest job, which is how can we make Destiny 2 appealing after many people play the final shape and dip the fuck out? And then how do we just make this shit work when functionally, I guess from a foundational standpoint, it's so fucked to begin with? And that is why we have stated that a Destiny 3 would be important. But a Destiny 3 is not going to happen, especially right now, with Marathon being the focus. We were supposed to be playing a beta of Marathon by 2024. Game director got caught playing Truth or Dare. Everything went to shit. Then new game director comes along, changes everything, for better or for worse. I don't know. And then just as Bungie's looking like they're getting a little bit of momentum with Marathon, the fucking art scandal happens. God damn it, brother. And Cammy made a great point here. He's concerned that Marathon's name is tarnished by that. To this day, people comment on our Marathon videos and they call it Art Raiders. Look, man, I don't know. I don't know if it can recover. It has to really, I mean, like it cannot be anything but exceptional. Marathon cannot be anything but exceptional. I have no clue what the momentum Marathon had before the art scandal. Didn't feel like they had any. No. They at least had the one thing that people would say about Marathon, which was intriguing art. People were like, you got an intriguing art style. You know, people would say that. People, I don't know if this is necessarily a great angle with the art, but it's intriguing. The animation they dropped last year, or the that trailer they dropped, that garnered a lot of attention. The art style won't mean shit if the game sucks. Well, here's the thing. It was the only win that they had at the time. And then it just... Look, I think the reality was this. Bungie was not ready at all. They were not ready at all to go live with Marathon. What they needed to do was continue to do their... Like Arc Raiders, continue to do their playtests behind closed doors for many months. But they're the ones that committed to the September release window of this year, by the way. They were going to release it in September of this year. Would you be fine if Bungie gave the Destiny IP to another studio to make D3? No, I would not. I would not. I mean, depends on what studio too, guys. I mean, if you're talking, what do you want a Destiny 3 to be gacha? We already have Destiny Rising. If you can give D3 to GGG, even though GGG makes a completely different kind of game, I'd fuck with that. Hell, if you gave D3 to Digital Extremes, I'd fuck with that. But they're not going to want that. You know where I'm coming from? I just think we just have to wait. I mean, we're just in the moment of wait and see. We'll see what Renegades looks like. We'll see if it has any vast improvements and if the content is intriguing enough for us. And yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if things just, you know, for Destiny just really dwindle. And then Marathon's going to come out, and then that's going to be the true make or break point. That will be the true make or break for the entire studio.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.